I'd like to welcome all of you back after lunch. I hope all of us are very energetic and looking forward to our next panel discussion. May I request our guest sitting at the back end of the hall to please come closer. I'm sure you'd like more connectivity with our panelists, and since we have a few people who will be joining us later, hopefully, may I once again remind all our guests in the pre-function area to join us inside the hall, please. And may I request everyone at the back end on the last few tables to please move up ahead so that our speakers can have an eye-to-eye contact. Gentlemen at the last table, may I request you to please take the first few tables. And thank you for your cooperation. A reminder to please put your cell phones on the silent mode once again. And let's continue being socially active on the network, of course. Tweet with the hashtag ETH. As I once again thank our partners for being a part of the summit, I'd like to now present you our next panel discussion, which is Intelligent and Integrated Utilities. This will be moderated by Mr. Sunil Jain, AD and CEO, Hero Future Energies. Let's put our hands together as I welcome him on stage. I'm sure the lunch didn't make us all lazy, so may I request all of you to please put your hands together and welcome our moderator and of course our panelist, Mr. Ajit B, Kulkarni, MD, Pratibha Industries. Mr. Rakesh, Markhedkar, President, Bajaj Electrical is joining us once again. Mr. Shrivastava, Senior Vice President, Corporate Affairs, SREI, our title partners. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Rajiv Jalota, Additional Municipal Corporation Commissioner. BrihanMumbai, MahanagarPalika, thank you for joining us, sir. We welcome you. Let's also put our hands together and welcome on stage Mr. Nitin, Govalia, MD, APAC, Onduline. Thank you for joining us. Once again, after the panel discussion, we'd like to have an open house with each one of you. I'd now like to request Mr. Jain to please take over.
Good afternoon, friends. It's always difficult after a good lunch. And you people have been sitting through this in the morning session. So I presume that the panelists here would have to be more lively to really keep your interest alive. I want to start with a question, as to why we are here to discuss in this panel that you need intelligent and integrated utilities. For long, this world, has been using, and I may use the word abusing, the resources available with us. We always thought everything is plenty. But let me tell you, in this world, nothing is infinite, not even the natural resources, barring the air and the sun. Whether we call it coal, we call it petroleum, we call it even water, nothing is infinite. In spite of the thing that 90% of the area in this earth is water, but we don't have a potable water. With the population explosion taking place all over the world, I just read few days back that by the end of this century, the world population would double, almost double. So imagine that all of us would be vying for the same resource. And it is nothing that you have got something new, which would really give me some comfort that, okay, if you're vying for the same resource, it will be available in plenty. No, the availability remains the same. And what is more glaring is that we continue to be casual in our approach when we use these resources. So to discipline, 6 billion people in this world may be a big challenge. So what you do is, you integrate the resources intelligently so that you can monitor them, control them intelligently, and make this world a better living place. No doubt, discipline is required amongst ourselves also. But the fact is, half the population in this world is not educated, which itself is the onus on us to do that. Just give you a simple example. We all use smartphones today. I don't know, means I have been using a mobile phone for last maybe 10, 15 years, I don't recollect. But earlier I used to charge my phone once or twice in one day, then it became once in a day, and today a smartphone is charged maybe 3 or maybe even 4 times a day. Do we realize that how much of electricity are we using today just for the mobiles? It's probably gone up by 3 to 4 times in that one segment. So this is the kind of usage what is going up, but we still continue to be casual because we put our mobile on charging for the whole night. We forget to put off our lights. We continue to have the air conditioners when we are not in our seats. We continue to put our laptops on charging in our office, so on and so forth. So there are many examples of how we waste energy. Similar is true for water. Similar is true for the waste we generate and how we throw it away. So on and so forth, so there can be a long list. We can always just debate about it. So this panel, which is an August panel with a lot of people with different varied experience, going to now debate as to how we can integrate power, water, waste management, create intelligent and smart cities, which probably was done in the earlier sessions. We cannot undo what has been done 100 years back or 50 years back, but what we create now can be done more intelligently. So with this, I would, start off, and I think so there's no other person better than to start off with Rajiv, who is, hands-on and who is the person who probably grapples with these day-to-day problems, whether it is water or whether it is sewage disposal, because he handles a municipal utility. Municipal corporations are utilities in their own right. So Rajiv, when, today a city like Delhi does not get more than 5 to 6 hours of water supply in a day, Delhiites are notorious to be wasting water on washing cars and washing everything. What can be done to really integrate things in the city? And just to give one statistic, that world over the wastage of water is only around 16 to 17% in the transmission system. India tops it up with 40% transmission wastage of water. So would like to hear your views on how we can control this. What are the new ideas which corporations are taking up to really integrate things both in terms of water and sewage and solid waste?
Thanks, Sunil. In fact, Mumbai is a very, very specific example. You can't copy it for various other cities in India in terms of water supply, because Mumbai historically has got a good amount of water, which is, though it brings it mostly from large distances, because the lakes near Mumbai were catering to a very, very small population when Mumbai got founded. But later on, with increase in population, these lakes were situated up to 150 to 160 kilometers from Mumbai. But the catchment areas have very, very a rainfall that you can depend on, and with 95% dependability. Means in 100 years, only in 5 years rainfall will be less than 10%, up to 90% it's always there. So Mumbai never has faced the problem. But you might be reading in the papers that in the last few years, with little bit shaky monsoon, you start shaking in Mumbai, that whether this water will last till 30th August, 31st July or 30th September. This is because we have not been able to add new sources of water for Mumbai, and this is true for most of the other places, because to add water you need to create dams, and it means displacement, and as well as destruction of environment and what not comes along with it. Though we were able to add a dam last year, but it was through painstaking efforts of 15 to 20 years. Now, all the cities need to think of how they have to manage within the water that is available, and there are international benchmarks available. Many of the cities in Europe, they have about 120 to 100 LPCD, liters per person per day water consumption. In Mumbai, the water which we supply amounts to more than 270 LPCD. Similarly, Delhi also, it amounts to around 220 LPCD. So these are huge statistics. Means one may say that it is 40% water is lost, but it is not lost, it is unaccounted for water. The loss of water, it's very difficult to quantify, that I will talk to you subsequently. Is first of all, we need to manage our water. How will we manage water in a city which is already 100-year-old or 80-year-old? Unfortunately, Mumbai's water pipelines are still not mapped on GIS platform. It's very difficult to provide what you say the smart and integrated services when you don't have the basic information of network. They have to depend on old staff, the retired staff to get to those places. So wherever, I think Delhi has done some, Bangalore has done some, but still most parts of bigger cities of India, it has not yet been done. So when we are talking of a newer or a greenfield smarter city, the basic thing is that all the public utilities, may it be water, sewer, power, telecommunication, gas, all this needs to be put on a basic base platform of GIS. To make a GIS base map, it still takes 2 to 3 years in a city of magnitude of Mumbai. In a smaller city, it may be possible to do in 1 year. But the policymakers need to design a framework that this is the way the base map has to be there, the platform has to be similar, and it should be applicable to all utilities, may it be in private sector or may it be in public sector. And once this mapping is done, it's very easy to go forward. You might have heard that some of the cities went for public-private partnership projects on water distribution and other things. And most of the projects in India have failed, or they have not even gotten off just because of the uncertainty involved. They said that the water line that is available in the city is 1,000 kilometers, but when the actual private partner came and started working, it was more than 3,000 kilometers. So once you don't even have the basic statistics, you are venturing into very unknown territories, and that is also creating sort of a very, very big problem. Now, water management is a very, very complex task. It starts from the source of water, then transmission of water up to the water treatment facility, then water treatment itself is a very huge task, then you do pumping, and through the reservoir then you transport water to the various citizens. In Mumbai, fortunately, because of the hill slopes, the water from the source comes by gravity and then goes into the water treatment plant directly without any power usage or energy usage. The only energy that is consumed is from pumping water from the treatment plant to a master balancing reservoir. Then from the master balancing reservoir, it has been placed at such a height that it carries water to 27 different reservoirs which are placed on 27 different hillocks in Mumbai. They are all underground, so you can't see because they are inside the hills. So there is no energy consumed in transporting this water up to those reservoirs. From those reservoirs up to the consumer also, water goes by gravity. So this is history, this is vision. Those visionaries 100 years back, 50 years back, they designed the water system in such a way that on a sustained basis it will be less energy consuming. Now this is the need of the hour, that whenever we even plan for a scheme, then plan for a city, we need to plan it taking all these natural advantages associated with the city into account. Another issue regarding water is how to manage water distribution in a smart manner. Mumbai, fortunately, since inception, had water through metering. So no water is supplied without meters, except in old chawls of Mumbai, because in those chawls, in a small area, more than 200-300 houses are there, and individual house cannot be metered. So their taxes are collected which are slightly higher than water charges for other people. So metering is essential. Sometimes you may not have, say, you can't put meter to every house in a city to start with. It all depends on your financial resources. You can have volumetric metering, say area of about 20 houses, you can put only 1 meter and measure water and then distribute that to start with. Now there is a new concept that has come in, automatic metering. It all depends on your financial resources whether you should go for automatic metering in the first stage itself, because you have to develop a habit of actually metering water, then reading the meters. It's a problem even in Mumbai where we see that about 20 to 30% meters are not functional, they are not read. So we have to start from the very basics. Don't have very high ambitions that in the first instance we will try to achieve what Europe has done in 100 years. We should go gradually. That is my wisdom to all of you. Similarly, water is associated with sewage. So when you consume water, then you generate sewage. And here, whenever most of the old cities of India, they don't have sewer lines. So when you are designing a new city per se, to start with you have to develop a sewer system. It's very, very essential, because otherwise you have septic tanks, and management and operations of septic tanks is the most problematic issue with any municipal council, or even now village panchayats have become larger. Everywhere it's a serious issue how to dispose the sewage that gets generated in a housing complex. So sewer systems have to be there. Now there is a talk whether we should have a decentralized sewer system to start with, or we should have it outside the city. Mumbai, to start with, had a decentralized system of sewer management. Means sewer used to be get collected from houses and then used to travel for a distance of about 10, 15, 20 kilometers and then used to be processed at one place. Then in 1970s, a European consulting firm said that Mumbai's sewer processing has to be centralized. They divided Mumbai into 7 sewage zones, and then sewage was taken at 7 different corners of the city. Now in sewage, a very, very technical issue is that sewage has to flow by a slope. It is not water that it goes by pressure. Now when sewage goes by a slope, there is now talks. Lot of people say you should have decentralized sewer management. When a city has already gone into such system of sewer management, you can't relay the sewer lines, you don't have spaces on the roads. So you just can't do that, you have to manage with what has happened now and in best possible way. So when a new city is getting designed, you need to also think of whether you will have a decentralized sewer management or the other way around. Now the new concept has also started coming in Mumbai also. In the development control rules, we say that any development more than 20,000 square meters has to have its own sewage treatment facility within its complex. Now it's also a complex issue. We have given permissions to about 1,500 such sewage treatment plants. About 500 or so have already come into being. We don't know how to monitor them, how to really regulate them. There are no regulations in place. The housing societies are also not fully aware that these are big white elephants. They have come in lot of energy intensive technologies, how to manage them. So when we design our rules and regulations, then also we have to see we have the adequate capacity to regulate this, or the best way is to shift this sewage into the sewer system and then it gets taken care of centrally. So these are issues which will have their takers and non-takers. We need deliberations. I think over further discussions I will be speaking more, otherwise I will be speaking. So I'll give chance to others.
Thank you, Rajiv, for this elaborate this thing. During the discussions, probably at the end of it, we will offer some solutions or some ideas as to what can be done. Continuing, so let's give a perspective. I'll go to Rakesh, who specializes in power. So we have water and sewage management on one side and power, which is a very critical factor. As to how, and there's a lot of work going on in power, in smart grids and integration of power with various systems. So Rakesh, can we?
Thank you, Sunil. Actually, when now, as I mentioned earlier, it's a lot of, we talk a lot on the smart cities, smart, say, infrastructure, smart power, all these things. But for that we need to understand basic 2-3 things where we are today, right? Before going to integration and the telecommunication and the automation system, I just wanted to highlight some of the things which is the major crisis. What is the main problem today with our system? As I mentioned today, you name any utility, whether it is a central utility, the private utility and the state utilities. Now the losses, on the prima facie losses also, they are around 50% if you put together the losses at the transmission and distribution. We put lot of efforts for the energy conservation at the consumer end. That is, let me tell you very honestly, that is okay, that has to be done, I am not denying that, but it is a very small amount. The major is getting lost in the way itself. So all now the programs, the government programs and or the programs with the PPP, they are all emphasis are given on the reduction in these losses. So whatever things are being done now in the country, first of all for the power distribution, means the health of the power utility, DISCOM, we need to really upgrade the infrastructure of the utilities. You name all the ST lines, LT line, 33 kV, 11 kV line, distribution transformers, and even some cabling part, they are very old. Now that equipments are getting deteriorated. Now their aging is a problem, and that major repair, rework, and that is the reason where the major power loss and the failure of the power comes into. These structures we need to really replace. Now most of the places what's happening, this is a overloading of equipment is another problem. Why this is happening? Because we just go and do something without having the proper future planning of, say, somebody was mentioning in the morning why we talk about the 2 years, 5 years from now. Let us talk about the 20 years from now. So this is what the hope, if we are not planning at the initial stage itself, so they keep on doing the rework and all, then there is an extra infrastructure, investment and all these things happen. So we need to really replace this old infrastructure. It is the killing in nature. Then coming to next is, we need to really now adopt the new technologies, which really will help us reducing the losses and maintaining the health of the equipment. Like nowadays, there are the condition monitoring equipment, and which we can really, this is not being implemented the way we are utilizing those condition monitoring health checkup measures in the factories and private sectors. This is still not being utilized in the DISCOMs and all. They chal raha hai, chalne do, that kind of things. Unless the transformer burn, unless that line get damaged, unless there is a major failure in the system, we are still having the habitual of the theek hai, because there is for doing all these things, there is no parallel line, nothing, and big shutdown is involved. Now this has become a political issue. If we talk about shutdown, means there is outage, and nobody can afford. There is a pressure from the top management of the utility, the politicians and government, ye power band mat karo, ab chunav aane wala hai. Ye hone wala. This, because of all these things, what's happening, that aging is killing, but we are not able to have even the parallel plan now, even at this stage of the things. So the condition monitoring of the equipments and the whole health system, the health to check the healthiness of the system has to be the regular measure, where we need to do some investment and like complete checks for all the system, periodic checks. It has to be done through the condition monitoring. Next is another bottleneck is the metering system itself. The metering today, like we are not able to 30% approximately the household, and the receiving station and sending station, we do not have the metering arrangement properly. Because of that, we are not very much clear what quantum of energy is being received or being sent, and the metering at the consumer end is a big problem, because the quality of meters what we are providing today, that is not up to the mark, because there is a calibration problems, mistakes, and there is big unrest into the for the consumers. In most of the cities, they say, "Was hamara the defective meters are installed." Most of the thing, and then we make different the parameters of the meters, different make meters, and there is a no similarization, and then we average out and we send the bills and all. So this is the biggest problem today. Next is now you are seeing a lot of overhead transmission and distribution line across the country in the farmhouses, cities, and it's a big jungle. We can say two big jungles in the urban areas today. One is concrete jungle and another is this power line jungle. This is a big problem today. Now what's happening when we talk about the smart cities and beautification of the cities and all, this all the systems of the power transmission distribution line has to be underground, properly connected with the ringman unit system, and to check, and there should be minimum 2 healthy systems. Now the Electricity Act 2003 give a right to the consumers to opt with even the supplier. Now today in most of the places we have only, unfortunately in India we don't have option. If there is a problem from the government utility, I do not have that option to switch over to the private utility. Today all this is what we need. In our infrastructure itself, we should have a parallel 2 systems and all. In case I am not satisfied with this service provider, I can switch over like that. Like this is what is happening now in the mobile and telecommunication network. So we have the choices, we can switch over the things, and when there is a healthy competition between the service providers, then quality of the supply and the cost of supply will definitely improve. And with this, when we are very sure the effective metering is done, then all the consumer will also be very vigilant for the use of electricity and all. अभी उनको मालूम boss ये if I do some fine tuning works also वो 10-20 रुपए का कुछ होगा तो होगा नहीं तो नहीं होगा. They are aware most of the towns and C-class city and villages. Still there's a practice around 60% of the places they will just take the average out of that village sometimes. There are incidences in even the villages. If the one consumer is not paying the bill, पूरे गांव की बिजली काट देते हैं. This is what is very regular phenomena in the villages of kind of things. So effective billing, it has to be done very effectively. Coming the most important aspect of the smart grid requirement. See now what is happening now when we see the overseas, they have a single integrated system. But in the same corridor there is a telecommunication system, that power system, and other distribution mechanism, so that dividing in the rest, and you will have a underground beautiful systems of the distribution mechanism. This is what we need to look into, that when we talk about, nothing should appear on above the ground. We are seeing in the most of the cities in the overseas, and some of the 2-3 cities in India also we have started implementing a underground substation. ऊपर park है, नीचे there is underground substation. Nobody knows. Gas insulated substation, very compact substations and all. So with the all automation and control, and they have a very remote controlling and that system where, but this is hardly 5% today even in India. This is limited up to the 132 kV level, but still for the distribution level 11 kV, 33 kV, and even that the distribution at 415 volt level, this is all disappearing. So when we talk about the smart city and smart transmission and distribution system, all these things has to be taken care at the planning stage. And in fact, this is the Middle East, even the European countries, they have the town planner is a very powerful man. He insists right from the beginning, even the during operation maintenance also, they force the utility to change the system. Because the town planner, they say, you need to, they really integrate all the telecommunication, electrical and other utility into the same corridor. So there is no rework. In our case, what is happening, today we laid up underground cabling work, or today we laid a good road, and next day somebody comes with, boss, humko to yahan pe we need to take a new underground cabling work, it has to be again dig it out. So this kind of things is because of this improper planning in the town planner stage itself. So with this, I think it is the way Government of India has taken initiatives like RAPDRP scheme, feeder separation, underground cabling, beautification of and making the ring main system at the power distribution level, and laying the fiber optical cable, connecting and integration of automation, means substation, telecommunication system through the gas insulated switch gears is really the good initiative by the government now. Hopefully, next few years we will be in that position to really to dream with a like a smart city concept. Thank you.
Thank you, Rakesh. So, moving on, I will be Ajit. You know, Rajiv did speak about the water management and sewage disposals. One burning issue which is faced by us is on the solid waste management, which all of us generate every day. Just to give you a statistics that today collectively India generates approximately, I'm giving you a number of 1,90,000 tons of solid waste every day. All the big cities like Mumbai, Delhi are generating close to 12 to 13,000 tons of solid waste every day. This is a monumental problem for the utilities to manage it. And considering the country, you know, where, you know, we have a habit of just throwing away the waste anywhere we like, segregation is a far cry. So, Ajit, let me have your views on how we tackle both the water.
Waste management, when we talk of waste management, it is not a single city has come out with a correct measure, because maybe we are not disciplined, or the people who are in India are not disciplined for the wastage. So there are companies coming from outside saying we have this system where we can segregate, give the energy or whatever it is, but they are not ready to invest. So investment has to come from the Indian people here, and the problem is if it fails, the Indian person fails. So this is an item which has to be, it has to be looked into in such a way that it has to complete, or some solution has to come in. I think he must be the better person to tell, where I have not seen any company who is as yet successful here. Am I right, sir?
Can I pitch in?
Yeah, please.
In fact, what you said, solid waste is a serious issue, not even for bigger cities, but even for bigger villages and smaller cities, because they have the issues related to capacity to process the end product. They are only just collecting the solid waste from the households and then dumping it somewhere. So we have to start from that initially how to inculcate that behavior. But it is a good thing that new cities are being planned. So once they are getting planned, at that stage itself, how citizens will be involved from segregation point, and how the concerned utilities that will be managing these new cities will be in a position to take care of the segregated waste and then really process that waste, because we have serious problems of landfill sites everywhere, and I think all across the developed world per se, now landfill is a passé. It's only the waste that gets processed, and in fact revenue is generated out of processing of solid waste. Like Mumbai generates almost about 7,500 metric tons of solid waste, besides 2,000 to 2,500 metric tons of debris. So when we are thinking of household solid waste, we have to take care of the debris that gets generated, because these old cities are getting redeveloped. And how to manage this debris, some of the European cities have come out with models of recycling of this debris and using it. But there the number is very, very manageable, the amount is very manageable, our numbers are quite large. In Mumbai, I want to give you an example that we tried an experiment of giving projects on PPP to 3 private parties, so that the end product gets processed in various ways, including composting, biomethanation, waste to energy and the like. But somehow, because of some legal issues and other hurdles, those projects could not take off. Then there is a Mumbai Metropolitan Region Development Authority, MMRDA, which took upon it the mantle of collecting this solid waste, processing of solid waste of about 6 municipal corporations in the MMR region of Mumbai, and setting up a common waste processing facility. Again, a private partner was found out through a bidding process, but the various municipal corporations refused to give their solid waste for that. In fact, in this regards, I would like to give an example of Seoul. I had been there 3 years back, and there the Seoul metropolitan region is generating about 17,500 metric tons solid waste per day from the 6 municipal corporations in the Seoul metropolitan region. And there they actually have a central statute in place, where under that statute you are obligated to dispose solid waste in this fashion to this entity which is created under a statute. It is working under the central government, and they are doing the processing, plus to provide processing facility for 17,500 metric tons daily. They reclaimed 1,000 acres of land in the sea. That was also very essential, because in Seoul metropolitan region land is very scarce, so they did this. Now in Mumbai we are fighting out that all our waste processing plants, which once upon a time were far away from the sea, from the city, are very near to the now developed regions, and nobody wants the waste processing facility to be near that. In Singapore, I think through a barge they are carrying solid waste, disposing it in an island and developing it. So we need to think of avenues how solid waste first of all gets segregated at the household level, how it gets collected in a very, very transparent fashion, because we can generate value out of it, and then final processing of solid waste, that also needs to be thought of in a very, very holistic manner, and then people have to abide by it.
Thank you, Raj. So we got some domestic flavor, so I would like to move over to Nitin, who's from Singapore. So he would also throw some light on how disaster management is managed through various innovative ways in countries abroad, and also give some flavor of what happens in such. Singapore is a very smart city, so we can get some ideas from there and some solutions.
Okay, thank you, Sunit. I am here representing a building material company which is a little bit different from what we have been hearing since morning. So I would like to, add to that as a new perspective, because when we are looking at a smart city, we are always thinking of smart infrastructure, smart utilities, as we've been talking today, and in the morning we talk about resource management. But from my perspective, as I see, one of the key elements of a smart city is also a smart building. And when is a building smart? It's not only when it's integrated with information and communication technology, but it's also what kind of material are you using to build that building, whether it's a floor, whether it's a wall, a door, or a window, or a roof for that matter. Because sometimes we take these things for granted and we don't look deeper that actually we talked about livability as a concept in morning, and I would say we should extend that concept to call breathability of the buildings. Now when you're constructing a building, is your building breathing in terms of through the walls, through the roof? Are you looking at in terms of what kind of material do you use? Because more and more, as you see, having been outside India now for the last 10 years in developed and developing countries, I can tell you that a lot of development has been happening in construction material. More and more innovation, intelligent products are coming which are safe and ecological oriented also. And I think when we are looking at the smart city concept, it becomes more and more important to be able to look at that, because in the end, a smart city is one where people are going to live. And I think it was very nicely raised in the morning that in the end, people should find that city livable, where they are able to interact with their surroundings. And when we look at that aspect in terms of when we are talking about what kind of building materials are you using, generally there would be specific characteristics which are very, very important in a building material, because I will also touch upon the concept of disaster management, because we've talked about, when we talk about a city, we always in our mindset assume everything is going to be okay. But a disaster does not give you an advance warning that it's going to happen. Today morning, I think before lunch, there was a speaker who said, I mean, if today there's a fire suddenly, there's no sprinklers here. So if tomorrow there's an earthquake, I mean, earthquake does not say that it's going to come. So when you're looking at smart city, are you looking at both, as I say, active and passive disaster management? Now, passive disaster management, you can say that it's how do you react once a disaster happens? How do you react, okay, earthquake has come or tsunami has come, now how are you putting your pieces together? How are you taking care of your people? But we can go a step further when we are looking at 100 smart cities or more than 100 smart cities, that can we be more in terms of active disaster management? Can we look at how we preparing our buildings in such a way that if and when a disaster happens, we are able to at least protect human lives? Because I think that's our it's paramount when we are looking at a smart city development, because in the end, we have to give importance to human life, whether, and there are many examples I can share across Asia. In Japan, when buildings are constructed, they have the strictest building norms in terms of how a building is made, so that their primary focus is that human life should be able to be saved. You go to Taiwan, which is a country on an alternate basis every month, they have one typhoon. Their buildings are made or roofs are made in such a way that they can withstand wind of speeds of 200, 300 kilometers per hour. You go to Philippines. Philippines has been a country which has been battered with storms every year. Ever since last year, the storm happened in Tacloban. Now when they are doing the rehabilitation efforts, they are specifically looking at that people should be able to be in those kinds of buildings where they can at least save human lives, and they are able to manage the water surge. You go further in China. We talked about China investing in India, and there's a lot of learning there in infrastructure also. But there's a lot of learning in China to see how they develop cities from scratch. They develop cities for 2 million, 3 million, or 10 million, that is 1 crore population, just out of scratch. But then there are very strict norms in terms of how a building is constructed, what kind of material is used, and that is very strictly followed. There are many examples like that if you go to disaster-prone countries like Turkey, Russia, Brazil, Chile, where all these countries which are prone to natural disasters, they have created those codes and the kind of material which you use, which helps in, I would say, active disaster management. Passive, we generally will react whenever it happens. But if we can react before it happens, I think we will bring about more saving of human lives. And that's where I say, more importantly, are we creating those future-ready products? I know in the morning somebody talked about smart products. I would go a step further to say, do we have future-ready products, which means which are innovative, which conserve, protect the environment, are easy to install, and more importantly, can create a better life for the people living inside those buildings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, last but not the least, Harsh, I would request Harsh to, throw some light on what utilities have to do is fine, but as citizens also, what is the onus on the citizens to integrate things what we want to do? When we say smart cities is one part, but smart living is another part. So,
thank you, Sunil. The interesting title was given intelligent utilities. And the word intelligent is very apt because it allows us to act as a substitute for capital. India, as we heard through the day, is never going to have the vast amounts of capital to create the infrastructure of our dreams. So to substitute that, we need to use intelligence and intelligent things to be able to act as a force multiplier and to make up for a loss of capital. But what is intelligence? Is intelligence just software sold by big companies and sensors and other things? All of that, of course, and smart materials, smart roads, smart traffic lights. But the real intelligence is to use all that data that is being generated and will be increasingly generated to take smarter decisions. And that's where I want to see that the smarter decisions are, who are the decision makers? One category, of course, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu spoke in the morning about leaders who should be brave enough to take bold decisions to raise tariffs. So in that category, you would classify various political leaders, specifically the municipal corporators and the municipally elected the chairman, Mr. Chatterjee said how many people know who the cooperator is. But I'd ask the question, does the cooperator know what his real role is? Does he have the data? One category of people who need to take decisions through smarter or intelligent thing are the municipal leadership. But the second category are two groups. One is citizens, you and I. What's happening in our city, what is happening, what could we do better. And the second is, as we are all large consumers, we all work in companies. This is a business gathering here. So our companies are big consumers of water, power, traffic services, building services. So how do we take smarter, more intelligent decisions using all the material we have here? And that's where I feel that our ability to leverage things like gaming, applications, mobile development for municipal and utility management is something that we should really start exploring. For instance, can we create some kind of a simulation about this is the total budget of the city, this is what is going to be spent on this. If we spend more on this, there's less available to this. Therefore, the second round, we'll have still less money to do this. And I'll take you to an example of a game that many of us played 4 years ago called Farmville. I think many people in this room must have at least seen Farmville, and we all gave it up. But it allowed us to think how to manage a business over a period of time, what are the constraints in a rural setting. So I'd like to see an application on Mumbaiville, for instance, that allows the citizens of Mumbai, the cooperators of Mumbai to say, okay, if we had to spend more money on this, there's less money to do this. If we spend more money on training and capacity building, what will we trade off? Will that really make a difference? And they can feed that information back to their cooperators, to Mr. Jalota, just like the Prime Minister set up a mygov.in, there could be a My Mumbai, place where people can give their comments and suggestions. Similarly, if you think about businesses as consumers of all these services, almost all of us, our companies are managing our corporate finances online. I mean, very rarely do you have to go to a bank, to do work. Even citizens now can manage it. So is there a way that through all these applications and smart cities integration, can we manage all our companies' utilities electronically, get data, compare how are we doing against this? Just earlier this, we were talking that how in Singapore, you get, along with your bill, electricity bill, you get an average of the last 6 months of your own bill, but you also get how a similar sized dwelling unit, how much electricity that is consumed, in the last. So you can compare how well you're doing. So this kind of information, if companies had, in India maybe it's slightly difficult to get to the individual household level tomorrow, but perhaps in a couple of years. But it shouldn't be too difficult to integrate as much data as possible and give it to all of us or all our facilities managers and say, I'm sure they're comparing the last 6 months, but are they comparing against other users? And are they able to give their suggested feedback in a participative way? Because one of the speakers earlier spoke about participative democracy and building citizens' engagement. So both in the customer and citizen, how do you sort of take feedback of what you could do better, do more of this, do less of this? Now, of course, there's a chicken and egg situation to this. You can argue that until unless we have the data and unless we have mapped out everything, and and you've pointed out that it takes taken 3 years to produce a credible map of Mumbai, and even then there are some challenges. So while that will still happen and more cities will integrate this, I think it's not probably too difficult to create applications on your phone and applications on other things that will allow people to do this even with limited data. Even if you don't have every last data that you have, but if you have even data up to the 100 crore level, if you have a 5,000 crore budget, you may not map it down to crores and lakhs. But if you have little less data, and you can keep adding to it. So my sort of plea to all of us here is to think about how to use the intelligent utilities that we are all going to see soon to help us make more intelligent decisions as citizens, leaders, and as business customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Harsh. So, we're going to go to the audience for a question, if you have any.
I'll just interrupt.
Yeah.
We have been talking, we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to do this for the smart cities. I'll tell you, there is a city in India, which is Navi Mumbai Municipal Corporation, which has come out with a 24/7 water supply, which no city in India is 24/7. Maybe Mumbai is 2 hours, Delhi is 3 hours. So, and they have been getting 3 years consecutive price on that. Acha, when you see Navi Mumbai, they have 250 ml of water, which is the recycled water. Maybe it is not sold today, but they have 250 ml water today. So that is one of the cities which I should say it is a smart city today.
Okay. Thank you for the update. Well, you know, at the end of the day, we have to integrate the power utility, the water utility, this waste disposal. I think so the waste disposal has a solution of converting waste into energy, especially the organic waste, and finding a way to treat the inorganic waste. That's actually possible, and we have to move in that. That's one part of the integration. Using smart sensors and condition monitoring systems for both power and water to reduce the wastages, bringing in new building materials to see that how we can save precious money and capital and lives in the eventuality of a disaster happening. So until unless we integrate everything, I feel it's a challenge. So smart cities can lead the way, which are being developed new. So I open it to the house.
Like
if you have any questions.
Like our minister said, you should have smart people.
Yeah.
So
now we are looking for a smart question.
Yes, very well said.
My question to the total panel.
Yeah.
Myself was not random from Engineering Real Estate.
Hello.
Yeah.
The question is, no doubt we have been talking about various problems and all these things in each and every sector. In my opinion, main problem is the master plan. Master plan of any existing city, you may have to take it as in piecemeal basis with two sectors or part of the areas. And unless we develop all those things with the government norms as well. Because government norms are absolutely necessary for the master plan to freeze it. All those things until it is done, then only we can go ahead on the smart city, because the smart city is not only water, sewer or the solid waste, because the items are nearly 10, 12 things.
Yeah.
And it may be possible that there may be limitations, all may not be possible in any area. Because of already the infrastructure is there, things may not be possible. Those also need to be identified. And the absolute part of it, that we dream about it can be done as a new area, that is only possible. This is my suggestion, sir.
So I don't know if there was a question in that, but still I take it that I presume that what we are looking at is there has to be besides the master plan, a regulation or a policy or a law in place, what he talked about or what he talked about from Singapore, where that some things will be mandatory for a new area or a city to be developed. So let's take a case of Delhi also. Suppose Delhi was to redevelop Moti Bagh or any other area, you will have a mandatory condition that these are a must for it to redevelop. I presume that's what.
I can just add a small example on the master plan from Singapore. They say that in Singapore generally they will have 3 to 5 master plans, and as the situation moves forward in terms of 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, in terms of the kind of population growth or the change in the environment, they are ready already with 1 or 2 options related to that movement. And I think that's what you are trying to hint at, and I think that would be a key aspect for us to also have.
But the other thing to add to it is the question of political will. Any years back, I remember that, Ms. Jalota, in a previous tenure as Chief Minister, she made it mandatory to have water harvesting in the city. Every new building, no sanction. And it got done. Now, water harvesting has been talked about for 10, 12 years, many cities, but it requires political will to make a plan and decision happen. So you might have the greatest master plan, all kinds of consultants would put together an effort and do a very nicely participative, citizen involved tour. How do you implement it? So my belief is that even if you don't have the best possible master plan, 70% good master plan implemented to 70% of its plan is better than 100% master plan implemented to 20% of its plan.
Exactly.
And
Here I'll just
Political will is there, but presently political will is there.
at the city level, at the city and state level.
I'd just like to add on that actually city planning is a very, very complex exercise. And what we have across India is every city has to have its own development plan, and they have specific time periods. Some cities have a 20-year development plan, some have 10-year development plan. But when a new city is actually getting into being, then it has to plan for, say, next 50 years. Similarly, when utilities are being planned, So the norm in city planning has to be 30 to 50 years. So you have to plan for that and then gradually lay the lines and other things. So that is so that is why predictive analytics, which is also a much modern science and it is now very hugely developed, that has to be ingrained into the planning system. We have to have very good analytics people, statisticians, even economists, then environmentalists, because at the moment what is happening, it is just architects, very few planners, because India doesn't have much planners, or engineers who are doing the job. But we need to have this also team in place when we are planning a city, and it should become part of the city development system per se.
Thank you, Rajiv. Just one last question. So I have
Yes, please. Mic. Yeah.
I hope I'm audible.
Yeah.
The situation here is we're talking about 10-year, 20-year kind of a plan, new cities. Now, even the existing cities, now why there has to be the utilities and the development, the growth of the city and everything, there is a finite capacity to it. As Sunil started off by saying, like, all the resources are finite. Similarly, the city's capacity to handle is also finite. Now, what I believe I want to take on this is the right enforcement on the density norms, even as part of the redevelopment. And the master, when we're talking about master plan, 10-year, 20-year, 50-year, actually London's utility redevelopment came up after 150 years. Now, that kind of a long-term vision needs to be required when we are planning and developing our cities.
I fully agree with you, because densification is one of the main ideas of city planning, and most of the metro towns have applied densification as one of its models of redevelopment. But in the Indian context, as per my experience, that the infrastructure side, the soft side of water, sewage, or say road, this takes a back seat and densification takes a front seat. So here mismatch happens for various reasons which I need not elaborate here. But that is a dilemma which we are facing every day. But somewhere down the line there needs to be a central statute, what is there in UK and some other places, that this is what it has to be done. Beyond this it can't be. So there has to be a line.
Okay, thanks a lot to all of you, because I have a pressure from the organizers that we must quit. I thank my co-panelists for sharing their views, and I thank all of you for having a patient listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much to our panelists and our moderator. May I request you, sir, to give us a couple of more minutes on the dais and an opportunity for a photograph with all of you as a group. And thank you so very much for making it so interactive. It is indeed a very tough task to be the panel post-lunch, but we have a wonderful audience. And may I also take this opportunity to request Mr. Rishi Kapoor to join us from our team, and thank each one of the panelists and the moderator for being a part of this very special summit and adding value to it. Let's put our hands together. Thank you, Mr. Kulkarni. Mr. Jalota, what a pleasure, sir. Mr. Jain, once again, we'd like to thank you for moderating the session. Mr. Shrivastava, thank you, sir. Thank you for adding Govalia, sir. Thank you, Mr. Govalia. Pleasure indeed. Thank you, gentlemen. May I request you to please join us as part of the audience.